¿Cómo te llamas? Jacobo, un chiquito, amigo.
Grande, ¿me regalas una foto?
Estamos formados ya, estamos formados. Sigan yo.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Todo chido, muchísimas gracias. No te preocupes.
Listo.
Bueno, perfecto. Claro, con gusto. Eso.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti, de verdad. Lo aprecio un chingo. Muchísimas gracias. Qué gusto conocerte. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, carnal. Eso significa un chingo para mí. Muchas gracias.
Fui a verte Triple Manía.
Gracias, te lo juro, 100%.
Fui a verte Triple Manía y...
Muchas gracias, carnal.
Vas a ganar.
Muchas gracias. Si Dios quiere, carnal.
Por conocerte.
Muchas gracias. Qué amable eres. Muchísimas gracias. Sí, claro, carnal. André, qué chido. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Emocionado? ¿Sí?
¿Me puedo tomar una contigo también? ¿Me puedo tomar una foto?
Claro, por favor.
It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
You know, in the Italian mafioso world, there's a phrase called the Teflon Don. John Gotti made that phrase very famous. Kaiser? That's Teflon. That is Teflon. Look, I think this story has been blown way out of proportion. Obviously, it's getting a shitload of attention because of Kaiser's current status in AAA. I mean, think about it. Patron was the most over person in that company. And WWE bought almost half of the company. And then you had the dirt sheets. Oh, WWE signed Patron. Yeah, they signed his ass out the door. The Mexican fans were livid. Don't go into our country and tell us who we have to like and dislike and force somebody out of the country who is our favorite number one guy. I agree wholeheartedly that WWE should have cut ties with Patron. Patron will never change. Patron is in his 40s now. That man is never going to change. And he's been given way too many chances. He's got a problem, obviously. But the bigger problem is, how do you repair AAA like this? Not only getting rid of Patron, not only having the unexpected backlash about El Hijo del Viqueño. I mean, guys, let's flash back to WrestleMania 41. When they were all standing outside the building, El Hijo del Viqueño was going to be the Cody Rhodes of that promotion. He was going to be the poster child. And the AAA fans in Mexico turned on that motherfucker, blamed him, made him pay. I think the better way to put it is made him pay for the sins of Alberto del Patron. And yet, with Patron being forced out abruptly, and yet Viqueño having the fans turn on him in a snap of a finger, somehow, in less than 1 year, you have El Grande Americano, which originally was, some people called it racist. It was a mockery of lucha libre. You know, remember, if Gable doesn't get injured, is Kaiser in this position? No, probably not. Kaiser right now might even be released from the WWE or TKO, however you want to look at it. So in a matter of a year, you have Kaiser getting, for this current time, the early Conan treatment. Conan ultimately was the Hulk Hogan of Mexico. That's what we used to say back in the day. But in the earlier days of Conan, when he started to get that momentum, I mean, Mexico just fell in love with him, and he ended up being what many people called at the time the Hulk Hogan of Mexico. I don't think Kaiser will be on that level, because sooner or later, I think WWE is not going to be able to resist to do kind of like what happened at Bash at the Beach 1996. You know, El Grande Americano has betrayed AAA. And instead of having Hall, Nash, and Hogan in the ring, you'll have Kaiser, Dunn, and the other Matarats in the ring. And you'll see garbage being thrown, batteries being thrown, old women spitting on Kaiser, people crying, you know, maybe even having targets on their heads. And to think, especially when you think of where the status of these guys were and where they are now, it's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. But I'll tell you this, you know, let's also, and this is why we're going to get not into a deep dive. This is very easy to explain. But unfortunately, and if you watch Becky Lynch with Chris Van Vliet, you'll get a little taste of it. You know, Dave Meltzer immediately, Becky Lynch ripped that motherfucking scab off the wound. And he's not the only one. Just listen to what she said about dirt sheets and journalists. There's always got to be people out there that's got to put their name imprinted on a story. When the facts are not confirmed, just because some schmuck tells you something doesn't mean you post it. You have people telling people shit all the time, and people hear something from someone. It's like the telephone thing. Anybody out there, like me, when I went in like first grade or second grade, they did something in the classroom called telephone, that somebody at the end of the classroom would be whispered something in their ear, and then that person would whisper it to the next person, and that person whispered, and it'd go through the whole entire class. And then by the time you got to the last person in the classroom, what was told to that person is totally fucking different than what was told to the original person. Unfortunately, in this day and age, with the obsession of having people's name in lights, and that's what it is. All right. The best journalists are the ones that don't insist that their names are in lights. And some people get it right and some people get it wrong. All right. There is some information that is being speculated right now. Think ICE. That actually may have a little bit more weight than you believe. But there's a problem about that. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'll say this, and we're going to talk for a few minutes about what's going on with Kaiser. I will tell you about the arrest. I will tell you where the source of all of this information, most of it came from, you know, with all due respect. And I say this very politely, all right? This is how, you know, the clicks go in the wrestling media world. Okay, give you a good example. We've talked about this before. All right, NXT's rating on CW. Okay, you go to Broadcast Insider or whatever the fuck the name of that website is, TV ratings. We used to have Zap to it or whatever that shit is. You go on those websites, they're the ones that are posting the ratings. But because people have buddies in the wrestling world, you will see a lot of places say, WrestleNomics, and this is nothing personal against them right now, but I'm making a point. WrestleNomics reports that NXT on CW did 555,000 viewers. Then you go on WrestleNomics website, and then in parentheses, it says courtesy of, and then you realize, wait a minute, all they did was go on a website. All they did was go on a website, which every single one of you could do, which every single journalist could do, but they make it seem like somebody has an inside. That's why 2 months before Nielsen switched over to the new methodology, including smart TVs and everything else, I told you guys, say goodbye to the quarter-hour ratings. They're not going to be able to figure out how they're going to pull this shit off. And then politely on their Patreon, they told their paid patrons, oh, we got a cease and desist from Nielsen. We're not allowed to post the quarter-hour numbers anymore. That wasn't a lie in itself, because the whole platform with streaming TV and Roku's and that, they don't do quarter hours. So it wasn't that you're not allowed to do it. It's just there is none. Before, that's why so many people wanted the old system to stick around. You know, they're not worried about AEW losing advertisers or TV. I mean, this is before the Paramount sale, obviously, the purchase. But the thing is, how comes people that are veterans in media, especially wrestling media, wanted you to think that the new system is evil and it's flawed and it's skewed and, you know, this is what the old numbers would have been? Why would you do that? We're supposed to proceed into the future with technology, and that's what the advertisers are based on. Even with the Netflix stuff, this schmuck, and I'm pointing to myself, this guy had to educate Meltzer and a bunch of others out there as far as how Netflix comes up with the ratings for WWE television, for Raw. You know, and that's because my niece, who's getting married next week, by the way, congrats to her, she works for a big advertising firm in New York City, and she spelled it out for me. But these people don't want to hear it. So my point about it is, there's this obsession that names have to be put in lights. It's no longer facts first. This is my motto since 1997. I don't want to be first, I want to be right. But where did all of this Kaiser stuff came about? Oh, my sources tell me that he asked the judge that he could go to Mexico. Gee, do you think that maybe this person went on the court website in Orlando, Orange County, Florida, and looked up the case number, and lo and behold, Marcel Barthel asks, can I go to Mexico to work? Look, motion to allow out-of-state and international travel. Anybody that is tuning in right now could do a simple Google search, look up the court, and find it. There is no insider stuff right now. As far as this speculation that this guy in the elevator told Kaiser, cut the shit out or I'm going to call ICE on your girl. First of all, if you look at Andrea Bazarte, you look at her, she doesn't look like an illegal immigrant. So I don't buy that at all. I don't buy it at all. Plus, you know, why would you even see? You're asking to get punched in the mouth. But the thing is, just because someone says that doesn't mean that you should run with it. And we'll get to that a little bit later. I'm not criticizing the person who put it out there, because there are a few people that are actually saying this right now. But the point is, Marcel Barthel abso-fucking-lutely is not telling people in the wrestling media world. They're not telling Tom, Dick, or Schmuck, yeah, he told my girl, I'm going to call fucking ICE. So I punched his ass out. He is in a very important position right now in AAA. He has a mass versus mass match going down next week. He got out of prison on $100. $100 fucking dollars. $1,000 bond cost $100. Okay? If this was a major situation, you don't get out of jail by spending $100. All right? But the thing is, this guy is not going to fucking go outside of his lawyer and start spreading information like that. And even if it's true, just using common sense. Why would you put something out there where it's going to be talked about, it's going to be handled by attorneys? It's a very delicate situation. You just got to use common sense. You got to use common sense. S21 Ultra is asking, by the way, welcome to the sit down. It is Sunday night, May 24th, 2026. I can't believe we're already almost in June. Right now, AEW Double or Nothing is going on. In a few moments, I will ask some of you live friends out there to give me some match results that have gone down already. This way I could share with everybody and give you my reaction. We're also going to talk a little bit about Saturday night's main event. We're going to talk about Clash in Italy. We're going to talk about, whatever your questions are for tonight. We'll run about 90 minutes to 2 hours. I think that's pretty reasonable for today. And by the way, much love to all of you out there that expressed your thoughts and prayers and condolences. We buried my father-in-law this past Thursday. Very, very rough. Very, very rough. It's just, it's a horrible thing going on right now. My mother was also released from the hospital Thursday. She is having some issues. Tuesday is a very important day to get some test results back. So she's not out of the woods, but she's home. And that's all I could ask for. So I want to thank you all for everybody's thoughts. But I am here, just like a lot of you out there, as an escape. It's as an escape from everyday bullshit. All right. I have a lot of things going on, but talking wrestling, talking about whatever you guys want to talk about is definitely therapeutic for yours truly as well. So we will have fun. I promise you we will have fun. And I'm sorry if I'm yelling. I'm not yelling. I'm Italian. So I want to just open up with just one thing about this whole, situation going on. We don't, I don't want to throw any shade on this Richard Reap guy. All right. I will tell you one thing that I found out. All right. I heard that this guy was an older guy. I also heard that, I won't put the age out there because I don't know if it's accurate. I will tell you I did some basic searching online to look up this person and where he lives and everything. And I'll give a little insight. If you go to Intellis.com, that's one of the websites and others, there is public information out there. So you can, if you search hard enough, actually get the details. But I will tell you this, if the guy's age is as old as they claim he is, Kaiser is very lucky that this guy wasn't just a few years older. Because when you strike an elderly person, that's where you get your shit in trouble. Even if the elderly person is fucking senile and says some dumb stuff, and I get it. Many of you out there thought the way the guy said, why don't you show some manners? It sounded like an old fart, be like, oh, can you just wait till you go to your room? Why don't you show some manners? Now, I have said since Wednesday, I thought Kaiser was wrong. Now, look at me. All right. Do I look like someone, even if I picked up Porky Pig, I'm a single guy. I'm just alone. I just want to have, a little bit of company, companionship, and pick up Porky Pig. And we're in the elevator and we're both we can't wait to go upstairs and tear our clothes off, and meanwhile, there's a guy in the elevator. I'm kissing and I'm smooching. Meanwhile, there's a guy in the elevator with us. I'm not the type that's going to stand there and get all physically like lovey-lovey in front of strangers like that. The fucking hotel elevators, they only go 12 floors. This isn't like 1900 where you're pulling a fucking chain. It takes about 30 seconds. If there's no one else in the elevator and everybody's going to the 12th floor, it takes 30 seconds. So if I'm Kaiser, I wait. You got a stranger in the elevator, it is a little bit uncomfortable. I guarantee there's a lot of you out there, if you're in an elevator and you're going up to your hotel room or your apartment or something like that, and you got a random couple almost pulling their clothes off, and you're in the elevator, it's fucking uncomfortable. So I actually disagree. It's just my opinion. I'm not, listen, some people may disagree with what I have to say, but I want to share with you exactly what we know, what is being put out there. Unfortunately, if you observe, pun intended, some of the bullshit out there, they're trying to sell you too that, this narrative about ICE is a WWE thing. If you just say, in my opinion, Dave, this guy, it's starting to get me mad. You know why? Because I see him repeatedly on X starting to write to people. Listen, if you don't like it, if you don't care about it, just ignore it. Dave, little message for you. And I don't know if you'll see this or not, but here's a little message in case you do. And I've been a long time subscriber. All right. Your words matter. There are 200 websites that if you fart live on a show, they will report it. So when you're someone that doesn't have influence, say whatever the fuck you want. People don't want to buy into it. They don't buy into it. But, it'd be nice once in a while to just say, in my opinion, that sounds like a WWE thing. There'd be no issue whatsoever. But you report it as news. And that's the problem. And that's the thing he doesn't understand. You have a lot of influence in the media world. Have a little responsibility. All right? Share it as an opinion. Because there's too many examples. The most recent one when Brody King was on the fucking television. You're posting things as factual. There's nothing wrong with having opinions. Share it as an opinion, and it will be looked at 1,000 times differently. But it's not going to listen. It's not going to listen. So anyway, so let's set this up, okay? Now, I will tell you, for anybody that is going to ask me, this arrest warrant, few people had DM'd me because they knew that I was going to do some substantial research on this. A lot of people, when they saw this arrest warrant, they thought it was fake because they said, that's not the mugshot. That picture is not the mugshot. Somebody probably just spliced that photo in there. No, that's actually the legit arrest warrant. See, that at the time, Marcel Barthel did not turn himself into Florida as of yet. So he wasn't there to take the mugshot. So they had a picture of him before. And I also think he might have been arrested before because the police did have a lineup. They did have a lineup. They had the police look at a bunch of pictures, and this Richard Reep guy said, yeah, that's him. So I want to just clear that up because I saw a lot of people online thinking that was fake, and it wasn't. Something else, you will see some additional censoring on here because unfortunately some dumb Polacks out there think that cutting half of the driver's license number off means that people aren't going to figure it out. I'm sorry, but when you have when you have half of a 5 cut off, especially from the bottom, and you have half of a 1 and half of a 0 and half of a 7, I think we could figure out what the other half of the fucking number is. So when you see some red, that is me trying to fix some stupidity that some people put out there. And here's another piece of advice. When you see the police report and Kaiser's home address, Barthel's home address is blacked out, that's nice and everything. But when you forget to fucking exit out on the next page, you're not helping at all. So I had to censor a little bit additional stuff, but we're going to set this up, all right? So the arrest warrant was issued, all right? Now, we need to understand this happened in April. And by the way, we'll get into your questions very, very shortly, I promise. But I just want to spell this out, give you the complete story as we know it right now, with all of the bullshit sifted out, and all of the research that I've put into it. And I need to remind all of you out there that Marcel Barthel is not talking to WrestlingVirgin.com. He's not just talking to random people and just blurting out stuff, you know, especially in the position that he's in. He's keeping his mouth shut. He's listening to his lawyers. He's listening to WWE. So a lot of what you're hearing is people talking to others who heard something from others, who heard something from others, who think they know it. And that's careless. Even if it ends up being true, that is careless. So this happened in April. It happened in April. That's the most interesting thing about it. Also, the person in the same apartment complex as Barthel never saw him before. Never saw him before because he didn't know who he was. He just described him and they looked at, oh, I thought my phone went off. We've been having some weird Sunday nights lately, if you know. I've in 29 years of doing this, I never got interrupted on Sundays, but like 2 out of the last 4 weeks, some weird phone calls. You know, guys, what I'm talking about. So this guy didn't know who Barthel was. So when the guy came down, you know, it's not like they stopped what they were doing and trying to find him. You know, this was a guy that got punched in the face. And he called the cops. Now, why do you want to listen to JBL and say, hey, he got punched in the face, big fucking deal? Should he have called the cops? You know, that's up for debate. All right. Another thing is, some people out there pushing a narrative that no punches were thrown. All right. The police report actually says that they saw the camera footage. They saw camera footage. I don't know if it was inside the elevator or inside the hallway. But these apartment complexes have cameras everywhere. So cameras did pick this up. So people that are telling you, contrary to what the cops are posting, those are the people you probably need to say, you know, keep smoking the funny cigarettes. So anyway, the arrest warrant was issued. Now, I'm going to read, for those on audio only, a little bit of the details behind this. And this will answer a few questions that some people have. This will also make a lot of you realize my sources told me, my sources told your sources did guts. You went on a fucking court website and downloaded the court documents, which anybody out there could do. You could go on the court and check it every hour until it shows his next court appearance. And then you could go online and say, PW bullshit reports that the next court date. No, just they read the court website like any of us can do. So there is the first part of the arrest warrant. So now we get into the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes. An affidavit or a sworn complaint having this day, blah, 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 blah. All right. Whereas alleged on or between April 24th, 2026 and present in Orange County, Florida, the defendant Marcel Barthel did, in violation of Florida state statutes, commit the offense of battery, which is a misdemeanor. So the arrest warrant was issued. Now, this arrest warrant was issued on May 19th, 2026. It took almost a full month for them to decide, yes, let's file an arrest warrant. So on this paper, it says $1,000 bail, but it was $1,000 bond. So this paper ended up being amended and it was $1,000 bond. Now, S21 Ultra asked earlier, explain the difference between bail and bond once again. A bond is something you purchase. You obviously have to have some type of collateral. When you have a bond, let's say a judge says, okay, you could go out, be released on $10,000 bail. That means you have to come up with $10,000. But if they say you could be released on $10,000 bond, you're purchasing a bond that is valued at $10,000 and you show that you have collateral to support that $10,000. This way, if you don't appear in court again and you decide, you know, I'm going to stay in Mexico. Mexico will not deport me. Then the court takes the $10,000, and whatever you had as collateral will pretty much get taken. So what is the cost of a bond? It is 90% of the time 10% of whatever the bail is. All right, or whatever the face value is. So when the judge said $1,000 bond, what happened was, and this is 100% fact because I sell bonds. I sell surety bonds. I sell criminal bonds. I sell different bonds. All right. You go to a bondsman and you say, I want to purchase $1,000 bond. You give them your social security number, your name, your address. You show what kind of assets you have, and then they charge you $100, 10% of the bond. So you realize that Ludwig Kaiser, Marcel Barthel, El Grande Americano, or has anybody had some weird happen on X lately? What was the name that was coming up? Louis Emperor? Did anybody else have Louis Emperor come up? I don't know what the hell. Yeah, people in the chat were saying it. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, this morning, I wanted to see if there was any update on this situation. I type in the search box, Ludwig Kaiser, and I saw what Raj Giri wrote, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I saw Dave Meltzer say stuff, and I saw some other people say stuff. And every time I did a search result and it's showing me results, I keep seeing Louis Emperor. And it's highlighted. I'm like, I look at the search box like, no, it's Ludwig Kaiser. And it kept saying Louis Emperor. What is this? So I go on Google and I'm like, why is it showing me Louis Emperor when I'm requesting search results for Ludwig Kaiser? And it says something about that this is the interpretation. And this is like, it's almost like Ludwig Kaiser is an offensive word. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but I saw everybody writing Louis Emperor. And I'm like, should I be writing Louis Emperor? Is this maybe his birth name that we didn't know about? That maybe he was left with a stork and we just found out his real name is Louis Emperor? I'm not kidding. I think tomorrow, live on the show, I'll share my screen and I'll just type in Ludwig Kaiser on X and watch what happens. You'll see Louis Emperor everywhere. So anyway, so let's continue and we'll get right to the most important part of this. But so that's the deal. You know, $1,000 bond. You call a bail bondsman and you say, I need $1,000 bond. Okay, what's your name? What's your date of birth? What's your social security number? What's your address? What do you own a house? Do you own a car? You know, what assets do you have? And then they do a little bit of a credit check on you. And if you do have, you know, collateral, then it costs 10% of whatever the bond is. In this case, $100. You might have to give the bondsman an extra fee for processing the bond, but he got out pretty much on $100. So if this was a very serious deal, I don't think he'd be out on $100. All right. So now we get to the more important details. So now we go to the actual affidavit with an explanation as far as what transpired. All right. So if anybody is interested, the agency case number at the time was 2026-001-47713. If you do that search in the court system, you will get some results, but there is another case number that I will give you a little bit later on for anybody audio only that could use it. We already know that Marcel Barthel, the only public information that we know as far as personal is his birthday. Everybody knows his birthday, July 8th, 1990. So if you do the court search and they say by name and date of birth, you just type in his name, date of birth, and you'll get your results. So here is pretty much the deal. The police officer whose sworn affidavit, you know, this is a very, you know, important thing. And he says that the officer has been a cop since 2024, and he swears this and that. So on April 23rd, okay, April 23rd, remember, the cops were called April 24th, I guess, but technically April 23rd is the incident. At about 6:37 in the evening, because that was the timestamp on the footage that they saw. Well, actually, I'm going one step ahead. At 6:37 p.m., the police officer responded to the address in reference to a reported battery. The police officer says, and I quote, upon arrival, I made contact with the complainant/victim, Richard Reap. Reap stated that he was battered by an unknown white male just outside the elevator on the 12th floor. Reap advised that at approximately 6:30 in the evening, he entered the elevator and was followed in by an unknown white male and an unknown white female, which we now believe is Bizarte, his girlfriend. Reap stated that as the elevator went up, so did Kaiser's pee-pee. No, that's not the police report. As the elevator ascended, the male and female began acting in an uncontrollable, intimate manner, which he described as aggressively kissing. Now, unfortunately, in this day and age, a lot of people are not used to seeing things like that other than OnlyFans. But like I said earlier, my honest opinion, I would have not done what Kaiser did. I'd feel pretty awkward if I was standing in an elevator and two people were doing that. Yeah, I think I would feel awkward too. So Reap stated that once the elevator reached the 12th floor, he exited the elevator and told the couple, "Please have some manners." Reap advised that immediately after making that statement, the unknown male began attacking him. Reap described the attack as the male punching him multiple times and pushing him to the ground. Reap further stated that the male made threats. Ooh, my YouTube crashed. Well, I'm sure you can still hear me. Let me finish this statement and I'll reload. Reap described the attack as male punching him multiple times and pushing him to the ground. Reap further stated that the male made threats of additional violence towards him. Reap advised that he believes the suspect is a resident of the apartment building and stated that he wished to pursue additional charges. So that is what we got so far. They're in an elevator. They go into the 12th floor. Reap shows up at the 12th floor, gets out and says, "Show some manners." And Kaiser got out of the elevator, punched him a couple of times, threw him down and said, "Say another thing, I'll kick your fucking ass." Right now, I think a lot of people think that Kaiser's a little bit of a hero defending his girl. We'll get to the ice shit a little bit later. So we shall continue. Let's continue. I observed, this is now them looking at Reap's injuries. I observed a fresh scratch on the back of Reap's head, along with the redness in the same area, consistent with a recent physical altercation. While Reap was completing a sworn statement, Officer Benavides arrived on scene to assist. Officer Benavides made contact with the on-site security in reference to possible surveillance footage. The officer reviewed the surveillance footage from the 12th floor and noticed a white male punching and pushing Reap outside the elevator at approximately the same time as reported. Now, guys, that totally contradicts some of your esteemed journalists out there that's saying that no punches were thrown. Why would the cops lie? Why would the footage lie? All right, at approximately 9:42 p.m., I, along with Corporal Shaler, returned to the location to conduct a photo lineup with Reap. The corporal had no prior involvement in the investigation, read the photographic lineup instructions, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they presented him with a lineup consisting of 6 individuals, one including the suspect. The photographs were labeled 1 through 6, were black and white and similar in appearance. Upon viewing the lineup, Reap immediately identified photograph number 5 by circling an initial and probably wrote, "That's the cocksucker that punched me out." The individual in photograph 5 was positively identified as Marcel Barthel. Based on the totality of the circumstances, probable cause was established for the arrest of Marcel Barthel for simple battery. So that is the story. Now, when Barthel found out about this, the date was May 19th. That is very important because it took almost a month for an arrest warrant to be issued. All right. Once he found out that there was an arrest warrant out for him, now I'm sure that probably what happened was the cops showed up at his building, talked to the people that run the building, and then somehow somebody reached out and got in touch with Barthel and said, "Hey, listen, there were cops here looking for you. And I'm sure Barthel realized, yeah, it's probably that time that fucking asshole I punched out. And then called up and he verified that, yes, there's a warrant out for your arrest. So Barthel left Mexico. He was in Mexico at the time. Because remember, last week they were going to do some of this meet and greet stuff, you know, the appearances. So the 19th was a Tuesday? The 19th was a Tuesday. So Thursday was supposed to be his appearance. On Tuesday, he flew back from Mexico to Florida, and on Wednesday, he turned himself in. They issued a bond of $1,000. Barthel purchased the bond, got out of jail, and asked the court to let him go back to Mexico. That was granted immediately. The reason why he couldn't make the Thursday appearance is because he was back in Florida on Wednesday. By the time he got arrested, or I should say turned himself in, by the time the court issued the bond, by the time he saw the judge, by the time everything in the paperwork was issued, it was too late for him to make the appearance for Thursday. So now we are where we are now. Now, if anybody that is interested, here is the document that a lot of people said, my sources tell me this. Yeah, your sources went on a website. This is the case number that you should look at going forward if you want more information on what happens next. Case number is 2026 MM 403782, A as an apple, O as an Oscar, okay? So now we go to the details. The undersigned attorney, Thomas Somerville, from the law offices of Thomas Somerville, I have a feeling some prick is going to call that office. Do you have any updates on your client, Barthel? The defendant, Marcel Barthel, by and through his assigned attorney, hereby waives his appearances for purposes of arraignment. The defendant enters a plea of not guilty to the charges filed against him in the cause based upon the court's allowing the defendant 10 days from the date of his said scheduled arraignment within which to file all motions directed toward the face of the charging instrument. The defendant requests a trial of said charges. Goes on to, hold on, I'll make that a little bigger for everyone. The defendant, Marcel Barthel, by and through his attorney, hereby moves the honorable court to enter an order allowing him to travel outside the state of Florida and internationally on the grounds, therefore, as followed. On May 19, 2026, Marcel Barthel became aware of the warrant for his arrest for allegedly assaulting another resident of his apartment complex in downtown Orlando approximately 1 month ago. At the same time he learned of the warrant, Mr. Barthel was in Mexico for work purposes and immediately made plans to travel back to Orlando to deal with the warrant. Mr. Barthel traveled back to Orlando on May 20th, turned himself in to the Orange County Jail. He was released after posting a $1,000 bond with conditions that he has no contact with the complaining witness. Mr. Barthel is an international performer who is required to travel throughout the United States and around the world to remain employed. His primary residence is the apartment complex in downtown Orlando where the alleged incident occurred. And the court granted him to be able to travel. That's it. That's the story. Nothing outside of that has been made public. Now, the part of it that everybody is jumping on is this that came out from Raj Giri. And yeah, look, you make a claim like this, he's got almost 2 million views, got some nice ad revenue out of this. And I like Raj. I'm not saying that what he received is wrong, but I think this is a little bit careless in my honest opinion, because again, Barthel is not going to leak out shit like that, especially in the position that he's in. And he's got a lawyer handling this, to just have some Tom, Dick, or Harry just telling someone who tells someone who tells someone, even if you're told that, even if the guy turned around and said, you smelled like shit, your girlfriend is ugly, I'm going to call ICE on her, I'm going to call doesn't matter. This does not help Barthel. All this does is get attention on the person who heard from someone this. So this is what Rajiri wrote that everybody is talking about right now. Quote, "This is what I heard regarding the Ludwig Kaiser situation. He was in the apartment elevator with Andrea Bazzarte as they were being affectionate, but nothing crazy or out of the ordinary. Reap allegedly didn't say anything in the elevator, but once he got out on the 12th floor, he allegedly said something to Kaiser to the effect of, "You need to show some fucking respect before I call ICE on that bitch." Kaiser got out of the elevator and they had a little scuffle, but no punches were apparently thrown. Now, why do I think this is careless? And if Raj, I have a feeling Raj will see this, and I say this with the utmost sincerity, and I mean this wholeheartedly. This is Anthony de Blasi talking. This is not D'Antonio in this in it. All right. You knew the police report was out. You knew the arrest warrant was out. You knew that the police officers saw surveillance footage and saw a white male punching Mr. Reap. Why did you still tweet that? Why did you say that there was just a scuffle and no punches were thrown? The arrest warrant was out already. So you're taking someone who is giving you hearsay and you're putting that over the actual arrest warrant that he had to fly all the way from Mexico to Florida to turn himself in for. See, again, my friends, I'm no genius here, and I'm nothing special. Use common sense. Common sense is the biggest asset you can have when you do opining, discussions, talking about news, whatever. Because a lot of people, you hear something, and instead of saying, not for nothing, but the police, they put the warrant out and it says they saw the elevator footage. So maybe I shouldn't put this out there because the cops are saying something totally they saw fucking footage. Your lying eyes don't deceive you. So to me, this is careless. I say this with the utmost respect because I do believe him 100%. And I do believe what he is saying because there are a few other people that are backing Raj up with this. I find it a little bit strange though. The guy's in an elevator with Kaiser and his girlfriend and just walks out and just says, "You better fucking control yourself or I'm going to fucking call ICE on that bitch." Especially if the guy might be 60 years old. Like, what are you, stupid? You delusional? Like, if I was Kyle, I would have laughed at that. He'd be like, "Old man, please." Vamos. Vamos. Andre. Ya. I could see if this guy said to Kaiser, "Hey, why don't you show some manners?" Kaiser said, "Go fuck yourself." And then this guy said, "Go fuck myself? Hey, you better be lucky I don't call ICE on your bitch." Then I could see it. It feels like there's a part of this that is missing. And I honestly don't believe that Kaiser is a stupid man. I guarantee you, Kaiser is in that elevator with this guy. I don't think Kaiser puts his dick before his brain. And what I mean by that is, yes, he stood up for his girlfriend. I applaud that 10,000 times over. But I also think before he pulled that punch, mask versus mask. I'm the most over guy in Mexico. I'm fucking still got my job because maybe it's, fuck it. And just knock the guy out anyway. This guy must have said some really, really horrible stuff to Kaiser. I think some additional words were exchanged. I honestly think that something else was said, and that could very well be true. All right. Again, I'm not disputing what Rajiri said about ICE. The problem that he did was at the very end. They had a little scuffle, no punches were thrown. You knew the police saw footage, and you still put that out there. So, good 2 million views, and listen, I don't doubt that he believes what he was told. This is why you got to use a little common sense. You got to think about before you write stuff. Oh, S21 Ultra. I said this on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if Kaiser had a couple of cocktails. Problem is we'll never know because he didn't turn himself in the same day. Cops didn't show up at his door the same day. So we'll never know if he was drinking or not. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a cocktail or two. But I also think that if you're going to go to that extent and punch somebody out, when you know the position that Kaiser is in AAA, something had to have said. Sometimes you're like, oh, fuck that, man. And I want to make this clear too. I do believe WWE was aware of this. I don't think Kaiser would have hit it. I know that, and trust me, I'm not saying this bragging, but I have some people, friends who work there and don't work there, and they all say the same thing. You know, when they first get employed, they are told that if you have any incidents whatsoever, you know, in a hotel, in a street, or this and that, whether big or small, let us know about it. So I don't think this is something that he hid from WWE. I think they were very much made aware of it. And after a month, probably thought it just, you know, went away. But this guy insists on pressing charges. Now, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Do I think Kaiser is going to be penalized because of this? No, absolutely not. It's a dumb thing that happened. All right. We don't know the full story. Again, I think this is why you always take the wait and see approach instead of, gee, when people look at this 5 years from now, my name will always be attached to it. I fucking hate that. But I don't believe that he will be penalized in any way. I also believe that these charges will ultimately get dropped. I do believe they will get dropped. It's going to be interesting if they bump into each other again since they live in the same complex. I think cooler heads will prevail. And if additional stuff was said, I guarantee you through his lawyer, Barthel will let the court know that this guy said a lot of shit also. Remember when Cash Wheeler got arrested? You remember when he got arrested, he had the gun in the car? You know, everybody, you know, immediately convicted this guy. Saw the arraignment, saw him in the court. He's fucked. That's it. Then we learned that the other driver was not, you know, innocent victim here. Driver was doing a lot of shit also. And those charges end up being dropped. So I have a feeling when this goes a little bit further, I think these charges will ultimately be dropped. But the thing is, this is not hurting Barthel in any way, shape, or form. If anything, they are supporting him even more. And I also feel like this is why the ICE reference, if anybody's going to put that out there, Raj or anybody else, the only person that should put that out there is either Kaiser or his attorney. Because what you're doing is you're sparking some really, really raw emotion because a lot of people despise ICE. Plus, look at Kaiser's girlfriend and where she's from. And you turn around and you'll have people putting death threats on Richard Reep for something like that. What happens if that actually is not true? Now you got this guy, everybody knows where he lives. Everybody knows the address. Again, you could do a simple Intellis search and you could pretty much find not only where he has his information, where he used to live, you could find relatives' names. You know, that is very, very dangerous to put out there, especially with the climate of ICE. You know, I could turn around if you say something, you know, like, keep your girl in check or I'm going to fucking slap that bitch. All right, yeah, you're a dick and you should get punched out. But when you start bringing up ICE, deportation, Mexico, bizarre day, like you're really, really getting into dangerous waters. And that's why this situation has blown up the way it has. Got to take some responsibility. I know it's tempting to just throw anything out there that somebody tells you. All right, but you got to take a little bit of responsibility. You know, and the problem is you always want your name out there. You know, that's why I always complain. You look at Meltzer and a lot of people, how many times do you see journalists get a story wrong, and then the person that they got the story wrong about, they turn around and they say, why didn't you just contact me? Why didn't you just reach out to me? I would have given you the answer. And guys, you know, my desk has a lot of bruisers to show this example. What happens if any journalist out there has a story, a juicy story, and they want to put it out there, got to put it out there. They don't call the subject of the story to verify it. Because what happens if you call the subject of your story you're about to put out there and that person says, no, it's not true. you're pretty much left at home going, motherfucker, son of a bitch, now I can't put this story out there. Because now I know the fucking truth, son of a bitch. No, they'll just put it out there. And then roll the dice. I get it wrong, person gets mad at me, why didn't you ask me? And then people forget about it, on to the next story. That's why so many times you don't see people verifying stuff. Because they just want to throw it out there. Get my name out there. Get the story out there. Get it out there, get it out there, get it out there. I'll worry about it later on. And to me, that's careless. Because think about it. Think about it. If the story if they call the source and the source says it's not true, and you do the right thing and you don't put the story out there, the story is never going to be put out there for you to get credit for. Your name will never be attached out there. That's why I'm not saying it to put it on me, but since 1997, what's the motto? Not only Kev, myself, and others, we don't want to be first, we want to be right. How many times, for my loyal friends out there that have tuned in for years, if not decades, how many times on my shows have I reported something wrong? How many times? How many times have we ignored stories because we knew they were wrong? People are always drooling at the mouth, waiting to say, DT, you were fucking wrong. If I make a prediction wrong, that's different. But how many times does a story make the shows and end up being completely wrong? Very, very, very rare. Because if something looks like shit, smells like shit, tastes like shit, it's probably shit. So I'd rather do a little extra research before I report the shit. And if the research don't add up, then I just say, nah, we'll pass on it. So that's why we don't get much attention. But it is what it is. So that's it. And you see what's this? Tell me some updates before we move on. Tell me some updates from Double or Nothing, and give me the basketball updates. Give me the basketball updates. I was not thrilled about that Danhausen Knicks shirt yesterday that came out for sale. The Knicks haven't won nothing yet. I brought up 1993 because in 1993, the Knicks were up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, I get it, Jordan. All I got to say is Jordan and Pippen, we don't need to say anything else. Of course, dominant like crazy in the 90s. But the thing is that the Knicks had the number 1 seed in 1993. I think their record was something like 66-22 or something like that. They were just killing it in 93. They were up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost the next 4. Right now, the Knicks are up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I do believe they'll make it to the finals, but if they fucking lose it, and that shirt is out there, Danhausen's done. He's not done amongst wrestling fans, it's just a shirt, just a shirt. You fat fuck, you are cursed. Plus, you are fat and cursed. I don't want to see the Knicks lose. The Knicks are up now 3-0. Good. Listen, I hope they win it. I was not old enough to see the Knicks win, back in the day. I started watching the Knicks around 1982, and I remember 83, 84 is when they got Bernard King, and then eventually Patrick Ewing, and the rest is history. I mean, I was a rabid Knicks fan in the 80s and the 90s. I started to fall out of love with the Knicks once, like Latrell Sprewell came and gone and all that stuff. I had the number 8 jersey. I was a big Knicks fan. So I remember a lot of the disappointment. So I want them to win. The Cavs are cursed, so they're done for. Give me some Double or Nothing updates. By the way, Bobby Means asks, if I was in charge of WWE, how would I go about fixing the tag team division? Give him more time. Go with the teams that click with the fans. I brought this up on Wednesday. I made sure to put Barthel in the thumbnail, but there's a lot of buzz about Enzo and Kaz returning. And I know this is going to sound unpopular, but I'll take Enzo and Kaz over the Motor City Machine Guns. Absolutely. Because if you haven't noticed, they're trying to find more yeet moments. That's what they're doing with Danhausen. That's what they're going to do with Big Kaz and Enzo. They want people who have great interaction with the fans. Motor City Machine Guns, I have nothing against. They are Hall of Famers. They have had an impressive career. But, you know, they're 40-something-year-olds. And I don't care if they come out with cool music and they can work in the ring. Everybody could work good in the ring. They didn't have that connection charismatically with the fans. Just like you look at fucking Zack Ryder. You know, with all due respect, most people don't give a shit about Matt Cardona. You know, Matt Cardona. What's the character there? Where's the catch? Where do the fans? In no time, you get woo, woo, woo. Don't you want 15,000 fans? Well, maybe 14,999 because I wouldn't do it. But wouldn't you want 10,000 fans all in the audience? They're buying a ticket, having a great... Remember when Jey Uso said, oos, 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 buy a ticket, oos. See how it feels, oos, when you're in the building, oos. And you'll see why everybody's having a good time, oos, oos. That's what it's about. It's about giving a perception of the fans having a great fucking time. All right, yeah, you do a crazy move, the fans chant holy shit, they'll chant this is awesome. But you give someone like Big Kaz and Enzo, and they're all doing SAWFT soft. I know it's goofy and it's corny, and they're not going to have more than 3-star matches. The fans are entertained. This is what WWE is emphasizing more of. We don't need 4-star matches. We need 4-star entertainment. We need connections with the fans. So how do you fix the tag team division? See what the fans are enjoying and see what they're not. All right. Back in the day, even though both of them could work their ass off, Booker T and Goldust was one of my favorite tag teams ever. And you look at Goldust's career, illustrious. No doubt about it. You look at Booker T, one of the greatest black champions of all time, incredible wrestler, whether he was black, white, gay, straight, green, brown, Italian, Spanish, Mexican, Reap. You know, it didn't matter. Booker T is one of the greatest of all time. When I tell you, and here's going to prove it. When I tell you Booker T and Goldust, what do you think about? You think about skits. You think about tag team championships. You don't think about the individual matches. You don't think about their abilities. You don't think about, wow, that match was incredible. No, you think about the skits, the chemistry, the laughter, the entertainment. That shows you that is more important right now. They want the fans to be entertained. And let me tell you something. Big Kaz and Enzo be a lot cheaper than the New Day. A lot cheaper than the New Day. I'm not saying the New Day should have been released. But what I'm saying is that's how you fix the tag team division. Know your audience. If your audience is really into something, you move with it. You build on it. Not going to be able to fix it overnight. Okay, good. So far, our predictions are spot on. Takeshita got his victory. Christian Cage and Adam Copeland, first tag team championship win together, I think since 2001. They are the tag champs. Good for them. Good for them. Mina Shirakawa versus Athena is happening now. My prediction was Athena. I think I'd like to see Athena advance. We're not going to get the full Double or Nothing card in here because they're going to go until probably midnight, maybe longer. Mick Foley is there now, and I saw a super shout out came in about Mr. Foley, and I definitely want to answer this one. Who sent this? Tommy D says, let me get this straight. Mick Foley cuts ties with WWE due to their support of Trump, but he joins AEW knowing the Khan family donated to Trump. Doesn't that make Mick Foley a hypocrite? Look, I obviously have a soft spot for Mick Foley, but you know, I there's a lot of political views I disagree with him with. But I will say this, and I'm going to reveal something that unfortunately a lot of people out there are not telling you, because the rage bait is to say that Shad Khan was part of the NFL owners that donated $1 million to the Trump inauguration. How many times you've read that over the last couple of days? Here's my straight up honest opinion, answer, and a little facts that I guarantee you don't know. because you want facts, right? And maybe you want to throw this in some of those people's faces that are trying to rage bait you right now. I think Mick Foley's logic, his reasoning for leaving WWE is not because of supporting Donald Trump. It's because they're working with Donald Trump. Triple H at the White House, fitness, nutrition, doesn't matter. You're working with Trump, and I think that's where you draw the line. I think the difference between the Khan family and WWE is that they're not working with Trump. Here's another thing. You probably don't notice. I'm going to throw something out there to you. You could be like, wait, what? And when you look it up, you'll see I'm right. It is true that Shad Khan was part of a bunch of NFL owners who donated $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. But that was in 2017. That was in early 2017. All right. Shad Khan, that same year, I don't know if it was October or November, I know it was later on in the year, was quoted as saying that Donald Trump is a divider. So he might have donated with other owners 6, 8 months, 9 months earlier for Trump's inauguration, but 6, 7, 8 months later, he had a little bit of a different of opinion about Trump. So when people bring up 2017, make sure they bring up everything about 2017. So I don't know how the Khan family feels right now about Trump. I don't know. But I will say, I think the reason why Foley, even if the Khans are still supportive of Trump, I think the reason why Foley is okay with it in AEW is because they're not actually working with Trump. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. I'm just giving you an honest, straight up answer. So thank you for that. Chainsaw Charlie. How do I think WWE will punish Kaiser for being arrested? Do I think there's any chance he loses the mask next week? Oh, no. No. He will not lose the mask. In fact, you want to know what's going to happen with Kaiser? It was 3 weeks ago, I think. I don't know if it was Wednesday night, Dynamite. It was 3 weeks ago. We told you that AAA was going to announce their new general manager. And there were names being floated around. One of the names that everybody was talking about was JBL, because JBL was trolling everyone. But a name that we talked about 3.5 weeks ago was Rey Mysterio. And we also heard that Rey Mysterio might have been one of those names that TKO confronted and said, listen, we're not really going to use you in this way. So, we'd like for you to do stuff in Mexico. Not saying that they told him to take a pay cut, but I think they wanted him to work AAA. So now, yesterday, they officially announced Rey Mysterio as the GM of AAA. By the way, if I'm AEW, make Foley the general manager, the commissioner of AEW. I know Cody Rhodes said that in 2017, 2019, whatever year it was. 2019. Fuck what AEW was saying in 2019. 2019 is much different than 2026. You can have an authority person in AEW. You need someone to go out there and book matches that has a presence. I would like to see AEW make Mick Foley a commissioner, an authority position on television. Let him be the one to arrange some matches. Let him be, Tony Khan has done it and he's obviously having fun doing it. But, it's a little bit different because with Tony Khan, he's a billionaire and he is the head cheese. So in storyline suspension of disbelief, you hit Tony Khan in the balls, you should be fired instantly. When Tony Khan's answer is, let me just walk around with a neck brace and act like, everything's okay. You see that whole storyline with the elite, just doing whatever they want. The EVPs doing what they want. Why didn't Tony Khan fucking release any of them? In storyline. He could have. Why didn't he? We thought, okay, maybe he'll turn heel and that's why he didn't let anybody go. But then we're like, we don't want to see any of that. Like Tony Khan should not be in that position. If Mick Foley is given authority by Tony Khan and Mick Foley answers to Tony Khan and Mick Foley is lower on the food chain, but he could book matches on TV. He could deal with confrontations, piss off heels, do decisions that make the fans pop. That's what I think AEW should do. AEW, absolutely. And I hope, I don't want to say I have a feeling, I hope that ends up happening. So, as far as Kaiser, this is what I think is happening. And I heard part of this from someone that I trust. Because remember, we used to get AAA dirt. Highlight Billy Real, God rest his soul, my friend. Former wrestler. He passed away 2 years ago. He used to give me a lot of inside scoops with AAA and New Japan and stuff. You guys remember. So someone who's friends with Billy Real still gives me a little bit of dirt with AAA. And here's something that is being discussed right now. You can take this as news, take it however you want. But with Rey Mysterio as the new general manager of AAA, guess who he's going to fuck with? Yes, he's going to fuck with the mega campeon, Dominic Mysterio. And the early thought is a Triple Mania later on in the year, 2-night event. Dominic Mysterio may have to defend that championship possibly twice. And one of the persons that I believe Dominic Mysterio will defend the championship against is against El Grande Americano. Marcel Barthel, Ludwig Kaiser, the assaulter, I think that is the future. Rey Mysterio is going to book Dominic Mysterio to face El Grande Americano, and El Grande Americano is going to defeat Dominic Mysterio for the Mega Championship, and that is coming soon. The only thing is, I don't know if they'll wait until Triple Mania. That is a long time. That is September. We're only in June. I know it's 3.5 months, almost 4 months. That's a little bit longer than you think. But with Ray, like being a GM now, why would you, if you're going to, listen, Dom obviously is going to fuck with Ray. And that'll force Ray to fuck with Dom. But the thing is, why would you wait 4 months to have Dom in that position? I don't know if you wait that long. You could, but I almost feel like that's going to be kind of hard to hold off, the confrontations to that point. But I do believe Kaiser is going to be the AAA champion. It's got to be. And it makes sense. Ray is going to not cost Dominic the championship, but he's going to make Dominic's life a little bit miserable along the way. That, I think, what's going to happen. Okay, Athena won. So by the way, so far we've run the table tonight. You guys are tuned into Wednesday Night Dynamite. You guys know we ran the table on Wednesday as well with Saturday night's main event. Told you, the betting odds were Becky Lynch beating Sal Ruka, which made no sense. And the betting odds were Rhea Ripley, Charlotte, and Alexa Bliss winning that match. And I said on Wednesday's predictions, Jade Cargill's got to pin Rhea Ripley to set up the title match. And Sal Ruka needs to beat Becky Lynch to set up that title match. We had this whole discussion on last Monday's show. You saw people online rage baiting people. Oh, they're screwing Sal Ruka. Why are they not giving her a title shot at Saturday night's main event? That's fucked up. No, it's not fucked up. It's smart. You want Becky Lynch to think, this is going to be a walk in the park. She lost 2 matches. She tripped. She fumbled. She's like a fucking blonde girl version of fucking Titus O'Neil. It's just not falling under the ring. She's falling on the ring. He's just stumbling and bumbling. So, yeah, you have Becky Lynch caught off guard at Saturday night's main event. Sal gets a victory, and that sets up the title match. A fucking somebody brain dead could have saw that. If Richard Reap would have been knocked out, he would have been unconscious, be like, Sal Ruka's going to win that match. I don't know why it was so difficult for people to figure that out, but yeah, we ran the table on Saturday night's main event as well. By the way, if anybody had missed it, Vision won. Jay Cargill, Meechin, and B-Fab won. Sal Ruka won by disqualification. What matches am I forgetting? Why am I drawing a blank? Holy shit. What other 2 matches were going down? Son of a bitch. Why am I drawing fucking blanks right now? Somebody, what were the other two matches from Saturday? Holy shit! Why am I like having brain farts right now? Oh, yeah. Penta over Ethan Page. You know, that was the one that was the hardest of us to determine. But like I said, I think fans want Obafemi versus Penta. Obafemi beating the fuck out of a chicken shit Ethan Page would have been entertaining as well. But I think down the line, Obafemi versus Penta is the way to go. And you had, yeah, that's right. Page and Brie Bella over Nia Jax. And we knew that was happening. And you see once again, you know, Paige, I honestly think had a much better showing, but you could see this nostalgia is starting to jump the shark a little bit. So I don't think their run will last much longer. I don't think they'll fight in Italy. I think the 5 matches that we have for Italy right now is going to stick. Maybe you add a 6th. And I honestly think you should add a 6th, even though, let me tell you something. Those 5 matches for Italy, which we'll talk about tomorrow, we'll do predictions tomorrow also, that might be the strongest card that WWE's put out in years, with the exception of WrestleMania and SummerSlam, the big events. This might be their strongest lineup for a regular pay-per-view, premium live event in years. Every match could main event. Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley, maybe not. But, you know, every match is strong. Every match is strong on that card. I am really happy with it, but I also feel you need to add one more. So, yeah, I'm just drawing a brain fart all of a sudden. Penta, I mean, how could I forget that match? Because we really wanted to see Penta retain. Obafemi, I think, wins that Intercontinental Championship right before Night of Champions. He will go into Saudi Arabia as the Intercontinental Champion. And that makes it really interesting because it'll be Obafemi versus Trick Williams. That will be a fucking awesome match to see. So, all right. Jim Ross joining the broadcasting team. All right. Are we going with Anarchy in the Arena? Are they doing, is that why they're doing this? What match is going on right now in AEW? Yeah, Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill have great chemistry. They do have great chemistry. And I think that's a feud that should continue. I'm not going to reveal predictions yet, but that should continue. So, all right. Let's get into one more super shout out, then we'll get into your questions. And we will call it. We still got another 40 minutes at least. Yuri, about Bull. When is the last time I spoke to Frank Goodman? Does he still run shows? Any chance we'll hear the two of us with a one-off episode of the Mass Maniac show? I have not talked to Frank on the phone probably in about, I would say, 5 years, 6 years. Just casual conversation. Might have even been a little longer than that. I absolutely would love to have him on for one more time. I would cue up the old music, have the Mass Maniac show. I still have it ringing in my ears. I am your genetic freak. I have tons of the old shows that will be going back up online. We put almost 2,000 old episodes up in the last couple of months. I have a bunch of the Mass Maniac shows that are coming up, and every single one of them is epic. You know, the New Jack ones are priceless, obviously. The Jake the Snake Roberts one, you know, Too Cold Scorpio, Axel Rotten. There's a Chris Candido episode in there. There is some pretty entertaining episodes. Even Norman Smiley. Didn't Norman Smiley claim that somebody slept with Buff? I don't know if he slept with Buff Bagwell's wife or girlfriend. I don't remember the story, but somebody slept with somebody, and I don't know. I know he said something really controversial in that episode, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. But for some reason, Bagwell comes to mind. I don't know why, and not because he got his leg cut or anything like that. It just, I'm pretty sure his name was the one. Maybe Bagwell was the one that ended up having the boom boom and screwing someone else over. But those will be going up soon. We're going to be working on those. So, 316 MMA, what's going on with Liv Morgan, the booking? She better not be left off of Clash in Italy. I think she will. It doesn't mean that she won't be there. I personally think she should go to Italy. Listen, it's pretty obvious that WWE, there was a little WrestleMania burnout, okay? And once some individuals got their big WrestleMania moments, it was like, okay, we need to pull back a little bit. All right, Stephanie McHale, you're going to take some time off. CM Punk, you're going to take some time off. AJ, you're going back to Chicago. There are some names that have kind of taken a back burner, even Gunther. This is 2 WrestleManias in a row that Gunther ends up right after not having much for him. I love that they put him on SmackDown, and I also think CM Punk should go to SmackDown too. Liv Morgan, she's not in any trouble. She is one of the most over women in that company. It's just that with WrestleMania over and done with, you can't simply just pencil in another opponent. We always thought about Sol Ruca, but we never thought it would be Sol Ruca and Becky Lynch as the first feud for Sol. We thought maybe Sol calls out Liv Morgan. Remember, we thought if Toxic Attraction was going to be brought to the main roster on Raw, and even as baby faces or tweeners, we thought, JC Jane, Fatal Influence, the 3 of them against Judgment Day. You got Roxanne, Raquel, and Liv. That might actually be something. But they're obviously buying time. Paige and Brie Bella, with all due respect, they're nowhere in the league of most of the women's wrestling as far as champions go. They win by flukes. They win by, just chance. And they were never in that, like Paige, yes, but Paige, obviously, her best years are behind her, unfortunately. Brie Bella, she is what she is, but they're not bad. But the thing is, they're having them win very strategically. This is not a team on paper, obviously, Lash Legend and Nia Jax had no business losing, but you knew that there'd be some circumstance involved with it. So Liv Morgan taking a little back burner. I think once we get through Italy, she'll be back on it. And you got to remember too, you're going to have Night of Champions. No titles are on the line. So what's going to happen? You're going to see Liv Morgan possibly facing a SmackDown champion. You might see, you see where I'm going with this? Liv Morgan, she might have a little return engagement with Stephanie McHale, but if we're going to go right into starting to push Night of Champions, which is happening sooner than people realize, she's going to be having some back and forth with the champion of SmackDown. Oh my God. And then if you're like, oh shit, you're going to Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley again. Fuck. Yeah. That's where this seems to be going. Io Sky, especially with Asuka going home for a little bit and Kairi Sane being released, Io Sky kind of up in the air. So you got to give Io Sky a little bit of TV time. So Liv Morgan's got to take a little bit of a back seat for a little while, but she'll be back in no time, and she's still champion, so there's no issues. There's no issues there. So we have a little basketball update. San Antonio 50, Oklahoma City 38 at halftime. So Roderick asks, what would I have Ray's retirement match with Dominic in AAA or at WrestleMania? That's a good one. That's a good one. I'll be honest with you. I would do it at WWE. The reason why I say that is because even though Ray is involved with AAA right now and Dominic is killing it there, he made his most money and most fame, and he was in WWE longer. I mean, I know where he came from and all that, but obviously this AAA is not your uncle's AAA. I think Ray could have a retirement tour and have multiple matches in AAA. But I honestly think if he retires, if you were telling me like WrestleMania or Triple Mania, I would go with WrestleMania. I think you're not going to sell more tickets for a Ray retirement match, but I also think the bigger stage is really where it should be. I honestly think so. Says probably Cody versus Roman at Crown Jewel. That's possible. That is very possible. I think, I don't know, man. Let me tell you something. I'm going to say something now that's going to piss off a lot of you. And this will be in a synopsis tomorrow. This might even be in the title tomorrow. Everybody, the two matches that everybody keeps telling me that they want to see, it's Roman Reigns versus Obafemi and Roman Reigns versus Gunther. And I love the idea of both. So I think to myself, how do you pull off one of these matches and get away with no title change? You do it at Night of Champions. You have Roman Reigns versus Gunther. And because they both have belts, no title is on the line. And that would piss people. I wanted WrestleMania, damn it. I wanted to be a title on the line. I want to see Roman versus Gunther. Well, you do it at Night of Champions, there's no belt on the line because they're both champions and they both leave as champions. And if you really want to go one step further, you could have fucking Brock Lesnar show up at Night of Champions and just fucking start laying out Gunther. Could even lay out Roman Reigns, lay them both fucking out and just cause a little bit of screw there because I don't think you want a clean winner for either one. But I kind of think if you're going to do Roman Reigns versus Gunther, you ain't doing it at WrestleMania. You're doing that shit at Night of Champions. Because you don't have to worry about a storyline with belts. I'm a champion. I'm a champion. I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to kick your ass. Let's fight. That's it. No titles on the line. Obafemi winning the title against Roman, I think that could be a possible WrestleMania match if Roman is still champion by then, which I don't know if actually is going to be. So, so I honestly think if we're going to get Roman versus Gunther, probably Night of Champions might be the destination. So, my favorite Foley matches from the 90s to the 2000s, well, obviously Hell in a Cell. I loved all of his stuff in ECW. I mean, he couldn't go wrong. I mean, his promos from 1995 into early 96, the Boiler Room Brawl, the empty arena shit, the I Quit match I can never watch again, but, when he won the championship, I loved his heel turn. I honestly thought Sami Zayn should have done the very same thing. They even dress similar. Sami wears flannel once in a while. When Mick Foley sat in the fucking middle of the ring on WWE television with the flannel, and he said the fans were turning on him, and he just, turned heel. Foley, the stuff he did with Funk, what he did in Japan was insane. You look at my X account. I had the privilege of having lunch with both of them when they were the WWF Tag Team Champions, and they held that belt for a very short amount of time. You'll see a picture, if you go to my X account, at Don Tony D, you'll see a picture of me with Mick Foley and Terry Funk, and they have the WWF Tag Team Championships. What was that, 1998, I think it was. So, lot of matches with Foley back then, a lot of matches. Somebody brought up Vader. And not just the Germany incident, because that match, all you remember is just the ear falling off. They had a match on WCW TV that ended up getting edited. And you look at Vader fucking really connecting legit. It's like, whoa. There was a lot of good stuff back then. When Foley got amnesia, I could go on forever with Mick Foley, so. I don't think Rock should apologize to Foley for the chair shots and all that. Foley was taking insane chair shots for far too long. I mean, that was disturbing. that was just way too much. I think Rock has apologized numerous times back then, but Mick Foley he took chair shots. I mean, my God, you look at ECW. There was one chair shot when he had his hands handcuffed behind his back, and I think Shane Douglas had him in a figure 4, and Mikey Whipwreck shows up in the ring and has a chair, sits at Cactus Jack, and fucking, if you remember when Rock hit, Ken Shamrock, when Rock hit Ken Shamrock square in the face with the chair, go look at the chair shot that Mikey Whipwreck did. He hit Foley in the face with the chair. Makes The Rock and Ken Shamrock look like baby shit. The guy took vicious chair shots. Vicious. All right. Not JPEG. Is it true that Kaz and Enzo might return along with Corbin? Yeah, we got into that numerous times. Kaz and Enzo, I think, is a win. I think they could still deliver. I think it's only been about 10 years. The nostalgia is there. Comedy is there. Different owners, different vibe, a little bit more adult-oriented. You see that they're a little bit more forgiving with people being a little bit edgy with their behavior. Not that they condone it. Baron Corbin, I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. I mean, it makes no sense to me. I mean, I look at Corbin the last 2 years and I'm like, the only thing that's happened is he's 2 years older. It's not like he reinvented himself. Like, he's going to be, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be similar to, like, not necessarily Aleister Black, but it's almost like you bring someone back and you have this, like a rebirth of, or like a fresh amount of emotion, creative ideas. Like, hey, I think we could do this time. I think we should have gone in this direction, but we didn't last time. Let's do it now. And you'll have this mindset like, yeah, what's old is new again, and second chance. It's almost like Matt Cardona. I honestly think Corbin will be like Cardona. Cardona came back, and the only people that were really, really hardcore into it was Chelsea Green, big-time supporters of Cardona, people that like him for real, but not the hardcore wrestling fans. You bring him back on TV, and it's like, I'm Matt Cardona. And, like, where's the woo-woo-woo? And no, I don't do that no more. Oh, so what are the fans, like, what's your catchphrase? Like, what's your saying? Like, what's your character? Like, I worked my ass off. Oh, so a 10-year-old, yeah, why should I cheer with him? Because he worked his ass off? Like, tell me why the younger fans out there should get into you. Are you funny? Are you charismatic? Are you interacting? Like, there's nothing. There's nothing. And I'm not saying to be a dick. And yes, he still has me blocked, but there's nothing. And honestly, I will bet the ranch, one of two things will happen. Either Zack Ryder returns or Matt Cardona is released. 1 year from now, either one of those two things will happen. It has to happen, not because I want it to happen, but because why do you keep him on television? For what purpose? Oh, he works good. Of course he works good, but so does everybody else. You're going to bring Baron Corbin back. It'll feel good for a month for some people, and it'll be like, why did they bring him back? Like, we're back to the same old shit again. Oh, now we have a younger group of fans that also don't give a shit. So, and listen, I'm just saying it as a fan, giving my honest opinion. I don't say it to make anybody feel good. I don't say it to compliment or kiss ass. I'm saying it as a fan. You look at the WWE product, you look at characters, everything is character driven. Everything is character driven. Everything is character driven. And you got Matt Cardona out there, and what does he do? Really? I'm serious. You bring Corbin back, what's he going to do? What's going to be so different? He's going to cut like heel promos. He's going to be rich. He's going to be poor. He's going to be an asshole. Like, in a month, people aren't going to care. All righty. let's continue. Yeah, Corbin was doing some stuff with Dijak and MLW, but like you said, I didn't know he was teaming up with Dijak. Yeah, most wrestling fans don't know. That's the problem. Like, you look at Cross, you're like, I would love to see Cross brought back. And I think that there is a legit chance that that could happen. My concern is what I used to say about Kairi Sane, what I said about Kairi Sane about WrestleMania predictions. When we thought that Asuka and Kairi Sane may split up, I said, I'm very concerned about Kairi Sane because WWE's never shown me that they could push her as a single star. You know, you look at Kairi Sane's entire WWE career. Was she ever really pushed as a single? She was used as a single star, but was she ever really pushed as a single star? Like, her biggest, you know, memories that we have is her getting injured. You know, I just feel like you bring Cross back, unless you let that guy run with, you know, a little bit of extra character development, I'm worried that after no time, it's right back to what they're doing. You know, we've brought that up about Triple H's creator for a while. He brought back quite a few people that Vince released, and now a lot of those people are gone again. Like, Triple H brought him back, gave them new life, and the problem is he didn't know how to build on it. It's almost like you get rid of a car because the car's got a blown engine, and the mechanic doesn't know how to fix it, so you get rid of the car. And then someone else has the car, and then you have the opportunity to get the car back. And you get the car back, you're like, hey, I think I know how to fix it. And then you get the car back, and for a little while, the car runs good, but in a matter of months, it starts leaking oil again, starts knocking. And then you realize, shit, I don't know what to do. And then you get rid of the car again. So that's kind of what happens. You see a lot of people that are brought back, unless they reinvent themselves big time, you know, it just, you know, the one good thing, one saving grace about people being brought back now is we don't have to worry about Vince didn't create that. Because Vince always had this thing that if he didn't create something, he always would have an issue with it, or he'd have to put his spin on it somewhere. Like, he didn't like using something that someone else created. It had to be his creation. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. So even if something is made somewhere else, TKO is like, hey, if you could generate money, you could generate, you know, fans, absolutely, man. Come on in. I don't think the retro action figures really have much to do with it. Because you look at WWE, are they really like capitalizing like on retro action figures? I mean, I commend him for doing that, and some of his podcasts are entertaining, and you know, I love what he does, but that doesn't really get WWE to make money. It doesn't, you know, like, that's his side thing. And it doesn't affect his career, in my opinion. Tristan, I love the Pillman Austin issue when Austin showed up at Pillman's house. You know, the idea that WWF didn't know he had the gun, I don't buy that at all. I never bought that at all. Pillman always came off as a loose cannon, but Pillman was a very, very smart man. The guy didn't lose it. So people thought he lost his noodles. I brought this up before. There was one time I went to the ECW arena in 1996, and this at the time, this is when Pillman came in. This is before the Hummer accident, and you know, they were doing this loose, you know, like the Rogue Horseman thing. And, you know, he shows up at CyberSlam 96 and threatens to piss in the ring. And, you know, he's supposed to have this feud with Shane Douglas and everything. And we met Pillman after one of the shows. I don't know if it was the same night that they filmed him inside a restaurant, like a couple of blocks away from the ECW arena. But we met him one night afterwards, and he was cool as fuck. And, you know, he wasn't like walking around like Looney Tunes. Like, you realized this guy is smart, man. Like, a very intelligent man. He knew how to blur that line and did it really, really well. He was very on TV, very unhinged. I loved the loose cannon stuff. Loved it. I take pride that I still have my original shirt, the Rogue Horseman. So I always thought that could have been something MJF did in AEW. If anybody remembers, I did that Rogue Horseman symbol with MJF's head on it, and that looked sweet, man. I always thought, I know he's always influenced by Piper, but I always thought, man, MJF could kind of be what Pillman was in 96, but they never really went there. So Spurs are up by 18. Give me some other AEW match results. Moxley wins. Okay, we're good on that one. Who else is winning? Who else is winning? Who else is winning? Any other match results other than we had Athena getting the victory? We said Athena, we said Moxley, we said Christian and Cope, Takeshita. I think those are the other. Joe versus Ospreay is up next. Okay, I'm going with Ospreay on that one. Samoa Joe, kind of the Northeast favorite because of Ring of Honor days, which obviously is a very long time ago. Oh, look. I still have it on the floor. Remember my Samoa Joe, my TNA Samoa Joe? And it still works. Right. It's kind of ironic. TNA, if you look at that, hey, Samoa Joe, we're going to do a talking figure. We're going to have an impressive stomach. You would think Samoa Joe would be like, could they press my hand? Like, why press my stomach? Look, little fat stomach.
Time for the Kikita clutch. Watch out, here comes the muscle buster.
Still works. Bash and Brawlers. That's kind of epic. That's not... that Sting figure is the most epic thing of all time, and I don't know where it is. That Sting figure is epic. I don't know where... Oh, wait. Is it back here? No, it's not back here. I don't know. By the way, look. We still got the original Grande Americano mask. So. All right. Let's start bringing it home. I didn't like Joker Sting when it first came around. It grew on me quickly. And when I watch it back, I like it more now than I did back then. I remember when we covered it, thought it was so like goofy, but it wasn't funny goofy. But then when he was fucking with Hogan, when he went to Hogan, he's like, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. And he was throwing all these vitamins in Hogan's mouth. I fucking laughed. That was kind of like the turning point for me with Joker Sting. That was funny shit, man. That was funny. All right. Yeah, I think Ospreay has to win the tournament. I think we all agree on that. So, no, it's over here. I don't like to abuse the box, but I don't know if I'll ever be. I would never even put that up on eBay. The box is so dinged up and everything. Like, I thought about putting it in the background, but Joe doesn't even dress like that anymore. I mean, he still wears the same type of setup, but you don't have the fucking beads around his neck anymore. Those beads. But it's kind of funny when you look back on it. Like, we're going to have him precious stomach. Do you have to choose that? All right, so Oklahoma City lost, so the series is tied up at 2. So, all right, let's get in a few more questions, and we shall call it. So tomorrow, right after Raw, I will be here. We'll get into some additional wrestling news. I don't think there'll be any more updates about Kaiser this quickly. Again, $100 it cost. This is not, put it this way, just because the internet is talking about it, and just because he's in a hair versus hair match next week, doesn't mean Florida is going to suddenly turn this into a big court case. TMZ covered it because he's a WWE star and because of what he's doing in AAA. But at the end of the day, this is a case where nobody got rushed to the hospital. Guy got his ass handed to him a little bit. Probably hurt the guy's pride more than anything, and his ego more than anything else. I think this quietly goes away. I'm sure we'll get an updated court date, but you have the case numbers now. Just look it up every morning. You know, if you want to be the first to reveal it online, just search it every hour. Just keep hitting reload, and when it pops up, you could say, my sources tell me. You know, I love when people do that, and it's literally like, I know exactly where you got it from. So, but there's really not going to be much more to add to this. I don't. And the thing is, Kaiser is not going to be stupid about it. It's going to be diplomatic. You know, in a lot of ways, he looks even more like a hero right now. But I just think some of the reporting was very careless. I don't need to repeat what I said earlier, but I think people understand. Just use common sense. So, oh yeah, the Samoa Joe credit card. Yeah, we still have the Samoa Joe credit card on the screen. That's my favorite thing that we ever did. You know, we were photoshopping before AI came around. We made a credit card with Samoa Joe's stomach. All we did, we really tried to get that with Capital One. Capital One at that time was doing a deal like you can have, like, if you want to send them a digital picture of your pets, they would put your pets on a credit card. You get a custom credit card. So we put Samoa Joe's stomach on the credit card and we sent it to Capital One. They're like, no, we can't do this. Like, shit. So we made our own. I swear to God, I would have loved to like walk into stores and like pay with my credit card and they look at it and it's Samoa Joe's stomach. Funny thing is, they wouldn't know it's Samoa Joe's stomach because let's be honest, if they approved this design, it would have had my name on it. And then every time I go to a store, people are like, why are you showing a picture of your tits and your rolls? And then when I'm going to say that's not me, that's a wrestler, then they're going to think I'm perverted. Like, why do you have a picture of a man's chest and stomach on your credit card? So obviously the beads give it away. The beads. So that was the only bad thing about it. If it would have gotten approved, it would have my name on it. I can't walk around, go to a store like, hey, I want to pay for this DVD rental. What's your name? Samoa Joe. Oh, really? See, people didn't think about that at the time. People like, yeah, do it. And I was saying to myself, I think Kev is the one that said to me, hey, DT, if you get that approved, whose name is going to be on the card? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think of that. But it got denied, so. Where did I get the ECW flag at? Somebody gifted it to me a while ago. I actually have two. I have one that's a little bit of a different color, and I hung it up, and I don't like the way it looks. There are some people on eBay, maybe even Etsy, that I think makes something similar, but someone gifted it to me, and I wanted something a specific size. It's the size I wanted. The problem is the rings to hang it up. The one next to the E was too far away, so it's kind of like either I have to trim down the Dominic picture or any picture that goes up there, or the E gets cut off a little bit. So, but yeah, I always pay a little tribute to ECW. It was my favorite promotion in the 90s, so. Not JPEG. If WWE and AEW did a collaboration pay-per-view, what would be my ideal match card? I wouldn't even know where to start. First of all, it wouldn't happen, but I absolutely would not use any big-time former WWE stars. I think it would come off a little bit strange. Like, I think Mercedes Moné is returning very, very soon. I don't think you would have Mercedes Moné fighting a WWE star. I think that would come off a little bit odd, you know, but I wouldn't even know where to start. And the problem is, and I'm not copping out, but this is why I don't get into the shows like that, because who wins then? Who wins? That's a problem too. Like, I could turn around and say, oh my God, I'd love to see MJF and CM Punk, especially after the stuff that MJF said, you know, or MJF versus Seth Rollins, or, you know, you could, or Jacob Fatu versus fucking, you know, Mark Briscoe. You know, like, I could come up with match ideas. Problem then is, like, who wins? And obviously you have to, like, you probably have to, you know, first of all, you would have to do a card that has an even number of matches. Let's say you do 10 matches, and you'd have to have 5 for WWE and 5 for AEW. You could not do something where WWE wins more matches or AEW wins more matches. You just would have unhinged people online that'll never get over that or can't get enough of it. So you would probably have to divide it. And the thing is, that's why back in the day when you had AWA and you had they had this idea of doing like Super Clash and let's do all these promotions and Vern Gagne wants this company versus this company. And then you started figuring out like who wins. And if I remember correctly, like Vern Gagne didn't want anybody from AWA losing. And it gets too political. So not even for a charity show. The only way I would do a charity show with WWE and AEW wrestling against each other is if it's only 1 or 2 matches. And even with that, I probably would end up with a double countout or a draw or a double DQ. I know it's cheesy, but back in the day, you look at when Backlund was the champion. Backlund faced Harley Race, who's the NWA champion. Backlund faced Flair, who was the NWA champion. Backlund faced Bockwinkel, who was the AWA champion. And look at the match results. And then you realize, okay, you kind of like, all right, we're not going to have a straight up clean winner. We'll just have like kind of like a clusterfuck or it's neither promotion wanted their champion to eat a loss. So it gets very, gets very political. So it's not easy to do that. Trust me, I would love to see like Thekla versus Rhea Ripley. I think that would be a pretty awesome match. There's a few women in AEW I would absolutely love to see go at it with Rhea or Liv or even Raquel Rodriguez for sure. Yeah, we're not going to go there today. I could say something pretty brutal, but I won't. It had to do with Brie Bella, but no. No, can't say it. Another time. What's my wildest, craziest ECW locker room story from my own memories? Nothing, as far as something that I saw, the only 2 stories that I could really say that I saw, and, not crazy, but when my former Hotline co-host, Matt Zombie, was selling the Beulah porn at the time, Tommy Dreamer's wife, she did a solo porn video, and he was selling it on eBay and selling it through Zombie Video and was making crazy money off of it. So one day we were all at the Elks Lodge on Queens Boulevard, and Matt Zombie's outside the building selling tapes, and he's selling copies of the Beulah porn too. And I don't know if it was Tommy Dreamer and Bubba Ray. I don't remember who was there. I wasn't there. I wasn't selling tapes, but somebody invited Matt Zombie into a bathroom and basically told Matt Zombie, you're not going to sell any more of those Beulah tapes, right? And he's like, no, of course not. Matt wasn't stupid. So, the story at the time was that Matt Zombie probably would have got his ass kicked if he continued selling it. And what happened? We watched the ECW show, and the next day he was on his hotline selling the Beulah porn. The other thing was when I brought the heroes for Guilty as Charged, was it 2001, right? No, 2000. No, 2001, whatever. Guilty as Charged. When I brought the heroes from my dad's store, Spike Dudley threw up, and people blamed it on my dad's food. That's the infamous pay-per-view where Francine had the 6-foot hero and she was simulating like she was going to do oral sex. If you look closely, you look at the flags on it, it's my dad's deli. It was my heroes. But that was awesome because I got to really like sit in the office with Paul Heyman for a few minutes and talking to him. I met him once or twice before that, but this was one time, we sat front row and I don't want to bring up other names that I was friendly with at the time, but, when I went backstage and just had the opportunity to hang out with him, that was very, very cool. One thing I'll always remember from that day, I think it was Super Crazy or Tajiri. I don't remember which one it was, But one of those two was in a room by themselves, just sitting there, like all by themselves. No Walkman, no CD player, just sitting by himself. Almost like he was on timeout. It was just strange. Like you walked by and one of those, I don't remember which one it was, but I think it might have been Tajiri. I think it might have been. But then again, if anybody remembers, oh my God, what was his name in TNA? Holy shit. He was Samoan too. Oh my God. Anybody remember who I'm talking about? Oh God. He was in TNA and he retired not too long after his TNA run. Oh shit. Oh, Sonny Siaki. I'll never forget. I was working at XPW show and Sonny Siaki was on it. And I remember walking around in the back and Sonny Siaki was in a corner just talking to himself and pacing back and forth. Very, very intense. And I don't remember who I asked, but I was like, is he all right? And like, yeah, that's how he gets his mindset. And I was just looking at him and I was amazed. He literally was just like in a zone. And you just like watch this and he was just in his zone by himself, just pacing and, talking to himself. And I was like, wow, this guy's intense. Sonny Siaki was intense, man. That's a guy that you always looked at and you were like, yeah, I don't think I want to fuck with this guy. Like he wasn't extremely intimidating. Like me, I'm 6'4", and I can't, I get my ass kicked by anybody. Hornswoggle probably kicked my ass, but I'm 6'4", and I'm like walking around this guy, and I'm looking at him like, he's a lot shorter than I thought he was. And not very intimidating physically wise, but you just watch that intensity, and you're like, oof. I ain't screwing with this guy, man. He was intimidating. So, Ospreay won. Wow, we're on a roll. We're on a roll. We got every match. We nailed Saturday night's main event, and so far we are perfect. I'm a little concerned about the main event though, because I think MJF is going to. I thought MJF was going to get his head shaved, but now with Foley in there, I almost feel like Foley might get involved. Does Foley bring out Sacco and give Sacco to MJF? I know people will be like, oh, I don't want that hokey stuff, but I wonder if Foley helps Darby Allin in some way. I wonder if MJF gets his head shaved. I also wonder if Foley turns heel. Maybe Foley turns heel and helps MJF win the title. There are quite a few people that think that MJF could win the title. So, all right. Raul wants to know my thoughts on the WWE ECW version. It was stupid. My friend being the Trivial Pursuit question is the best thing about it. A lot of you know this already. Timmy Arson, the ECW zombie, was a very close friend of mine. And he did a hotline with me for a couple of years off and on. And he was the first person ever to be on WWE's ECW TV show on Sci-Fi. And I'll never forget that day. Because he called me up, he called Matt, Brian, Keith, and he's like, make sure you tune in to ECW tonight. We thought he was going to be a security guard. And all of a sudden, they turn it on, and I see this fucking zombie in the ring. Whoa! And it's Timmy. And I'm not kidding. I started crying. It felt like Goodfellas. Remember when everybody thought Joe Pesci was going to be made? He ended up getting his head blown off and he wasn't made. Remember when De Niro broke the phone booth? We felt like we were made. Like, that's our buddy. That's my good friend. That's our hotline guy. Is our good friends. And he's now in fucking doing the zombie thing. Problem is, after that, it was all downhill. I remember when they showed Mordecai outside and he had the fangs and you saw like the billboard for the arena and it's supposed to be like a full moon. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. This is just not very good. And it got worse and worse and worse. So, if Timmy never debuted, I would have probably never watched most of it, and I would have said it was the worst thing ever. So I also, when Steven DeAngelis was first going to be the announcer there, that I love too, because I was friends with Steven DeAngelis, Horshack, people used to call him. I was so happy when he was doing the first, in the very beginning. Then they gave it to Justin Roberts. And I was like, fuck you. Fuck Justin Roberts. Justin Roberts probably has me blocked on Twitter longer than anybody else. He has me blocked on Twitter longer than anybody else. So, longer than my ex-girlfriend. My first person in wrestling I got starstruck with, probably Snuka. See, I started watching wrestling in 79, same year that Kev started watching, but I wasn't watching it on a weekly basis because my mom wouldn't let me. I was too young to understand it. But once we got around 81, 82 is when I started getting into it. And maybe Superstar Billy Graham for a short period of time. But the problem is, Billy Graham was gone for the most part by the time I started understanding wrestling. So I was getting magazines. So I would see the magazines and we would get back issues. But even then, that was like 1982. And then by that time, he came back as Karate Guy and it wasn't the same. Probably Snuka, because there was just something about him. There was just that aura. So, would another Ospreay MJF match at Wembley excite me, given that it ran a couple of years ago? Sure, it would. Yeah, different circumstances. We've had WrestleMania main events, you revisit matches over the years. No reason why you couldn't do that again. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a level of Rock and Cena, but sometimes you revisit things. I don't know if you should do that though. I don't know if you should, but if it ends up being that, I don't think it's an issue. I really don't think it's an issue. Plus, Ospreay would be in a much different position now. His stock is much higher now in AEW than it was back then. So Ospreay won. So we're still perfect tonight. What matches do we have left? By the way, we're gonna wrap this up in about 10 minutes. We have Swerve versus Bandito. Who did I go with that? I went with Swerve. Yes, I did go with Swerve. Yeah, I just feel Bandito. I don't know. I mean, people like him on the Northeast and everything, but I don't know. I think Swerve should get the victory on that one. So we got Swerve versus Bandito. We got the women's four-way. Okay. And then we got MJF. Yeah, so... No, we got more than that. I think there's at least another match or two besides that. So, yeah, I think Will Ospreay at All In. I think you have to do that at Wembley. I mean, that's, you have to do it. I also am still believing that New Day will have their first AEW match at Wembley. Doesn't mean they can't debut on AEW television sooner, but I would have their first match in an AEW ring at Wembley. That's what I would do. And I have no issue with it being Young Bucks versus Kofi and Xavier. I mean, obviously they'll have different names, but I think the Young Bucks versus New Day at Wembley is the only match you should do. Not for the whole night, but that's the match you should do. I don't think you have to overthink it. I don't think, because that's a fantasy match for many. And I think that match will be a lot more even than people think. And it's interesting. You pick a winner. Stadium Stampede, of course. That's right. I think Jericho's team's got to get it. You can't keep having Chris Jericho. You can't keep having him eat losses. I mean, I know he's got a victory here and there, but I think Jericho's team's got to win Stampede, so... All right. Let's start bringing this home. Who's going to get the finals? I don't want to see New Day versus FTR at Wembley. I don't think many people want to see that. None against FTR. I mean, I got my personal feelings about Dax for quite some time, but I don't think that's a match that people are dying to see. I think AEW fans would eat up, Young Bucks and New Day. I think that's the only match you should do between those two. Perfect. It can't get any more perfect than that. That's what I would do. Somebody had mentioned to me the other day that Mercedes Moné should be the wild card for the Owen Hart tournament. She won the tournament last year, right? Do you have Mercedes Moné win 2 tournaments in a row? I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, the Owen Hart tournament is what it is. I just feel like it's kind of lost its luster in a lot of ways, especially when you see some of the participants and you're like, it's hard to have a direct connection to Owen Hart. How many years late? 28 years after he died? No, he died in 99, right? So it would have been 27 years. You think about it, like a lot of wrestlers were just in diapers at the time. You don't have many wrestlers that are still doing it to be in a tournament. I know Jarrett wanted to be in a tournament. I could see Copeland being in a tournament, this and that. But the thing is, you don't have many people with direct connections anymore. So you kind of understand why somebody like Mina Shirakawa's in a tournament. Or a couple of years ago, you had, who's that other winner from Japan? Oh, God. Drawing, I don't know why I'm drawing blanks like I am tonight. It's not like I'm drawing blanks, but like hits me like a few seconds later. But Ryan Armstrong. That's not who I was talking about. That's question. Do I think that WWE would ever do another Invasion pay-per-view as a premium live event? Since WWE has a relationship with TNA, that could be an actual premium live event with WWE. Well, they wanted to do Invasion, and then unfortunately it was the anniversary of an attack overseas. So they had to turn it into a different name. I mean, I personally would not do an Invasion pay-per-view because the thing is, the working relationship with TNA and WWE now, once you had Trick Williams as the champion, like it's kind of lost that outsider luster. Like I always feel when you do an Invasion, like you want to feel like these two companies do not get along. They do not like each other. They're at odds at each other. And unfortunately, they have worked so much together, as heels, baby faces teaming up. And I just feel there's been too much camaraderie. So I don't like the idea of doing an Invasion right now with WWE or TNA. I don't think it would really feel all that special. Plus, they're not using the big names. And I think that's kind of like where they went wrong with it. We always said from day one it was going to be NXT and TNA. I mean, yeah, you got Joe Hendry at the WrestleMania for a cup of coffee, and you get a Royal Rumble entry here and there, but for the most part, it was NXT and TNA. That shows you that WWE wanted to set the stage that TNA is kind of like maybe a little above NXT's level, but nowhere near WWE's level. So you're not going to do a WWE TNA feud. It just wouldn't work. So, why are we not seeing Chinese main eventers? It's just because there's not a plethora of Chinese talent. I mean, Xia Li comes to mind right away. And, unfortunately, you don't have this plethora of Chinese talent. I mean, I look over the years, you get a wrestler once in a while, but it's just, not, an ethnicity that is prevalent in wrestling. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen somebody on social media like give Chinese people a chance or give Chinamen a chance. Like, you don't see this demand online, like, how come they're not using any Chinese wrestlers? There's just not a whole big variety. It's just what it is. Not every country has this plethora of professional wrestlers. That's why you look at Stephanie Vaquer. She had a little controversy recently, that she didn't do it on purpose. So she came across almost like Chile doesn't have wrestling. But when you look at Chile as a whole, you don't have this plethora of Chilean wrestlers, working in WWE. It's just every country is different. So I actually did stop taking Prevagen. I started taking this other one, Naroma. I don't know. It was like $20 cheaper. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I need the Prevagen, but after tonight, I might need the Prevagen. No, you know what it is? I just buried my father-in-law. The whole 2 weeks, I've been losing sleep about my mom being in a hospital, having a heart surgery now, having memory issues. They don't know if it's dementia or anesthesia complications or, other things. It's just, not sleeping well. It's just been rough. So I'm just drained. That's what it is. So doggies are fine. Doggies are fine. They're inside. They're waiting for me. So they're actually doing very well. Thank you for asking. So I just can't believe that Bella will be 3 this year and Bruno turned 2 April 1st. I mean, it feels like yesterday that Bruno was only like 6 months old, but it's crazy. Like how fast. We just got him rabies shots yesterday. So if anybody that's curious, that is my Bella. That's my Bella. She's awesome. And this is Bruno. Everybody goes nuts for Bruno. Everybody thinks I should have called him Gizmo. That would have been his name. He would have been Gizmo, but we called him Bruno. We named him after our favorite restaurant. Bruno and Bella. Italian names. Hey, how you doing? Hey, even my dog's got Italian names. So, Roderick thinks Alex Windsor and Jamie Hayter beat Megan Bain and Cross. Why is that just not sound right? For the tag titles at Wembley. I don't think either one of those tag teams should be the champions at Wembley. It's just Lena Cross, right? Yeah, Lena Cross. I don't think either one should be tag champs. You want to possibly do Jamie Hayter because of Wembley? I could see it. I'll be honest with you, man. I look back at AEW and I think Jamie Hayter and Thunder Rosa, even though Thunder Rosa had some moments, I feel Jamie Hayter might be one of the most misused women ever used in AEW. I mean, I just think back to when she first came in. I remember when she first came in and she was chunky. I remember when Jamie Hayter first came in. I remember that ass. I was like, that ass. Like, she was chunky. Like, she was heavier. She still looked great. But she came back after that and like, whoa, she changed. Like, she really, changed her physique. But, man, I thought she would have been so much further on the food chain in AEW. I think she is the one out of it. I mean, Deonna Purrazzo, it's ridiculous how they used her. Camille, it's ridiculous how they used her. Even fucking Taya Valkyrie, it's ridiculous how they used her. But I kind of feel Jamie Hayter, if there was anybody that was not known outside of WWE and AEW, or even TNA, that should have been like that one woman, I kind of think it's her. I think it's her. I mean, I know injuries had to do with it, but still, there was a lot of time that she wasn't injured that they really weren't using her the right way. I remember when Thekla made her debut last year. I think we just hit the anniversary of it too. Thekla made her debut and she attacked Jamie Hayter. And if I remember correctly how they did it, the lights went off and the lights went on and Jamie Hayter's laying on the mat. And I'm like, oh, that sucked. But I also think, wasn't Jamie Hayter injured and they didn't want her to actually take a bump or something? I just felt like if she couldn't take a bump, why even take a bump? I don't remember it clearly, but I kind of remember it being underwhelming. So, see, my Prevagen, I don't need Prevagen for everything. It's just some names I just draw blank. So, all right, let's take 2 more questions. We'll take 3 more questions, and we're gonna get out of here. Bobby Means would like to know, do I think there's a possibility of Seth Rollins and Montez Ford having a program soon? No. Could they have a match? Yes, absolutely. Do I think they should have a feud? No. Because the whole idea of bringing back the Street Profits is to give them the tag titles sooner than later. And if you're going to start putting them in singles matches repeatedly, that's not a good sign for that team, especially with the damage that's been done, with the tag team division for a good year, if we're being honest. I don't think, if you want to do it for one night, I think it would be a fun match to see on a Raw, but I don't want this to turn into a program. And I especially don't want Angelo Dawkins kind of being like, which side do I take? Idiot. You take Montez's side and that's it. Seth, we're cool, but I have to stand by my brother from another mother. That's it. Sorry, Seth. Sorry. I don't want to see that. You want to do one match, fine, but I don't want to see a feud. When do I see Toni Storm return? I think she returns at Wembley. I think she does return at Wembley. It's been very tight-lipped about Toni Storm, and I actually think that's a good thing. It bothers me. It kind of bothers me almost as much as this. Did you see the bullshit that I got on social media the other day for this? I posted a side-by-side of the guy that beat the shit out of Stephanie Vicaire and Marcel Barthel with the big sensor on their face. Then I put this one up there as well. And I wrote, if it's good enough for Rogelio Reyes, it's good enough for Barthel. And I had people on social media threatening me. How could you compare the two? One strangled the other. And I started having to educate people. I'm like, moron, you do realize that I am a huge fan of Stephanie Vicaire, that I think Rogelio Reyes is a dirtbag. My point that I was trying to make is I couldn't believe after this motherfucker got sentenced to 152 months in jail that you have wrestling news sites still censoring his face. That was my whole point. This motherfucker gets sentenced as a criminal and wrestling news sites refuse still to show his mugshot. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to not show his mugshot, then you better do the same for Marcel Barthel. Because Marcel Barthel is under a fucking mask right now as well as El Grande Americano. What's the difference? Well, one is Mexican and one isn't. Oh, you're a dumb Polak. I got so much heat on social media for those and the people going after me, it was the total opposite. They thought I was making fun of that. I'm like, no, nitwits, it's the opposite. I'm criticizing the media that is still hiding this convicted felon, this convicted, assaulter, almost killed Stephanie Vicaire, and they're still hiding his face. Why? That was my whole point with that. But I don't know. It's just very weird. You see how things are covered these days. Pretty weird. But, all right. I think Toni Storm, the media has been very respectful with. I just wish that respect, privacy, fair reporting, because trust me, if we're being honest, there's been a lot of speculation why Toni Storm is off TV. Anything from, I don't want to say what they are, but let's just say that it could be a woman thing. Some people have said it's a psychological reason. Some people have said that there's a health reason. Some people have, there's been 4 or 5 speculations. But you notice the pattern? None of these wrestling news sites are reporting it. They'll run to say, that, they didn't really throw punches or this didn't really happen. but won't say, oh, there's a rumor that she might be pregnant. I'm just throwing a random example. Obviously the severity of the two is much different. I personally think you leave Toni Storm's situation private. I've always said, if Toni Storm wants us to know what happened, she'll tell us. If Piper Niven wants us to know what happened, she'll tell us. And she did. About the neck and everything. All right. If someone who has something going on wants us to know more, they should be the person telling us. Like the Marty Jannetty situation. Marty Jannetty's family didn't want that out there, but they put out a statement and they said, please respect his privacy. Please respect. And then what happens? 48 hours after the family says, please, you got Stevie Richards on a video with fucking side by side with Marty Jannetty with fucking 3/4 of a leg. People are it's very interesting how they selectively respect people, and other people, it's like, nah, man, that ad revenue, those 30,000 views, man, I can't pass that up. It is what it is. That's why I don't do YouTube as much as I should. Trust me, I've been getting more of an itch of doing YouTube every day. If Marcel Barthel gets arrested, guys, I'll be online in a half hour. But it's not easy when you're running an insurance business. But, I've been trying to put individual segments online. But I kind of prefer to be off of it more. Swerve One. We're fucking batting 1,000, man. Saturday night's main event, double or nothing. Yeah, now MJF will win the championship and fuck it all up. Fuck it all up. Wow. I tell you, I'm a little surprised that we ran the table between WWE and AEW so far. I expect to get one match wrong, maybe two, but a little surprised. I was very surprised at the betting odds. And I know some of you out there don't like betting odds, but you legitimately could bet. If you look at Fightful, they always advertise a BG online and put in the code Fightful and you get like an extra couple of bucks to bet. You could bet on wrestling for real. So take these betting odds seriously because people are betting real money. And when I watched it the other day and I'm like, how do you have Becky Lynch as the favorite? We knew it was non-title. The wrestling websites that were reporting clarification about Becky. No, it was no clarification. Becky Lynch said on Raw, I'm not fighting you for the title. That's it. End of story. There was no graphic after with the title on the line. When they showed the advertisements for Saturday Night's Main Event, it didn't show a title. There was no dispute. People turned it into a dispute because they wanted to report it as a news story. But when I saw the betting odds and it was like Becky is the favorite, I'm like, that makes no sense. Saruka had to win this one. The whole storyline was she's sloppy, she's not ready, should be in NXT still, so Becky Lynch thinks she's got to walk in the park, and obviously Saruka's going to make it difficult, and then it's going to lead to a title match. You have a non-title, to have a title match. I wish I would have bet money, to be honest with you. Do I own any firearms? No. I honestly glad I don't have one. A long time ago, I thought about getting one. My dad has a couple, but I remember one time I was working with my dad and we left the store and he had this big bag of money and, he's looking around and he goes in his car and puts it underneath the seat and everything. And underneath the seat, he had his gun, for security reasons. And, just when I saw it, I was just too freaked out by it. So, plus one time, I've never really told this story publicly, but one time my friend Joey, I don't want to say his last name because it's a very famous Gambino crime family name. And yes, he is the grandson of a very famous mafioso. His name is Joey. Just look up the most famous gangster with the first name Joey and you'll figure it out. Just from the Northeast. You'll figure it out. I'll give you a hint. Last name begins with the letter B. I was in his house one time. This was around 1990. And we were sitting on his couch watching TV or something. And he whips out this gun. And I don't know if it was his father's gun or if his gun, But he whips out this gun and he's pointing at everyone. Everyone's like, oh, oh, oh. So he's like, it ain't loaded. And he whips out the chamber and didn't seem loaded. And then he starts like, he points it at you like this. Just see who flinches. And he points it at everybody. And then sure enough, I don't know, maybe like a half hour later, he like sees the couch and hits the trigger and a fucking bullet went off in the couch. And everybody left the house. Like, no fucking way, man. He didn't realize there was one in the chamber, you know, but the way he was pointed at people, like it scared the shit out of us. Like that, he, you know, was not funny. Wasn't funny. So Bonifico is not a very famous Five Family guy. Yeah, I should throw that in there. He's from one of the Five Families. He'll figure it out. I'll put a picture up of me and my friends hanging out, and you'll look at him, you'll be like, holy shit, he looks exactly like his grandfather. So, all right, guys, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. So, it's a shame that Britt Baker is not back. It's a shame. Now watch, she returns. But I want to thank you all for spending a little bit of your Sunday night with yours truly. We will be back tomorrow with a fun edition of the Don Tony Show. Definitely recap Raw. We'll get into predictions for Clash in Italy. Very, very solid card so far. I hope they add one additional match to it. We'll do predictions there. We'll get into some wrestling news. Again, don't expect anything added in this Barthel story. If I get sent anything that we're not aware of, you know, depending on what it is, I'll share it. If it's something that I really can't verify, we'll leave it off the show. But I just want to thank you again. Much love to all of you. And just keep supporting the website, wrestling-news.com. I don't plug it on YouTube as much as I should. But make sure you download our audio shows because we're finally back in the top 40. And in some areas, top 20. But mostly we've been in the top 40. And when you think of the fact that there's thousands of wrestling shows out there, to be back in the top 40, I am very, very honored. It's very, very difficult to do a show like this and not have Kev for some of them because there's conversations that I'm expecting a response and there is none. So it's not as easy as you think, just riding solo, knowing that that person is never going to be here again. But, you know, just check out the other shows and check out our history. You know, we got shows online and now hotline reports going back as early as 2002. You know, so if you're curious to see what we were talking about 20 years ago in wrestling, go check out the archives. There's quite a bit up there. And like I said, Mass Maniac episodes will be returning soon. I'm going to throw up some more old hotline reports. You will hear me doing Wrestling Hotline, and you'll say to me, God, Don Tony, you were terrible. Some people think I'm terrible now, but I listened to myself in the early 2000s, and I'm like, there ain't no way you would catch me listening to myself. Awful, awful, awful. I think we turned the corner around 2003. Once we hit 2003, the vibe started changing, started getting into the groove. But, oof, God, was a horrible, horrible, horrible. So Bonfiglio is not one of the Five Families. I will tell you, though, that the first and last letter is the same, but it's not Bonfiglio. Just look up, you know, who are the famous five. Let me put it this way. I'll leave you with this. I got my phone on a charger. I'll leave you with this. Let's see if it tells you the right thing. Hey, Siri. Who are the legendary five families of the mafia in the Northeast?
Here's an answer from Britannica.
Hey, Siri, could you read it to me?
Here's what I found.
Oh, hey, Siri, name me the famous five families of the mafia in the Northeast, but please read me the list.
Here's an answer from Britannica.
It doesn't read it. Fuck you. If I got to put Gemini on my phone, Gemini will answer it. Actually, just look up that question online. You will get the answer. So, all right, everybody. I'm out here. I'm rambling. I'll catch you on the next one. Be well. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. Doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.